Admiral Jack Harrison walked into the big meeting room on Nexus Prime. The room was huge and filled with aliens from all over the galaxy. They sat in their special chairs and floated in their tanks. Some had wings, some had many arms, and some looked like giant jellyfish. They were all here for the Galactic Council meeting. Jack had gray hair and tired eyes. He had been a soldier for 40 years. Today, he was here to give the most important speech of his life. Behind him stood Captain Lisa Parker and Dr. Karen Webb. They carried important files and data that showed the truth about humans. The aliens were not taking this meeting seriously. The Zephyrians flapped their crystal wings like they were bored. The Corvins flexed their 4 big arms and made sounds like laughing. The snake-like Nexari changed colors on their scales to show they thought this was stupid. Jack stepped forward and spoke into the translator device. His voice went out to all the aliens in their own languages. I am here today to tell you something very important. For 200 years, humans have fought in your wars. But we have been holding back. We have only used a small part of our real power. The Nexari ambassador hissed softly. His scales turned purple, which meant he did not believe what Jack was saying. Admiral Harrison, your humans fight okay in our wars. We do not need you to make big claims about secret powers. Captain Lisa Parker stepped up next to Jack. She pressed buttons on her device, and pictures appeared in the air. The pictures showed human soldiers fighting in different wars over many years. What you have seen is only 15% of what we can really do. We keep our best weapons locked away. We tell our soldiers to be careful and not hurt too many people. The room got very loud as all the aliens started talking at once. They were making angry sounds and flashing colors. The Valteri, who looked like floating jellyfish, made their lights blink in patterns that meant they thought humans were lying. Humans always tell big stories about themselves, said the Valteri. You fight like everyone else. Nothing special about you. Jack felt sad because he knew they would not listen. That is exactly what we are trying to tell you. We have been fighting with rules that make us weak on purpose. Our soldiers have orders to not hurt civilians. They have orders to not destroy too much. They have orders to fight nice and clean. Dr. Karen Webb used her computer to show more information. She was a scientist who studied how different aliens think. We have studied how humans fight when they do not hold back. It is very different from what you have seen. Most aliens would think it is too much. The big Corvin leader named Throxiel hit his platform with his huge fist. The sound was very loud. If humans are so strong, why hide it? Warriors should show their strength to everyone. Jack looked at his team. They all had worried faces. Because once we stop holding back, we cannot go back to the old way. When humans fight without rules, we do not care about anything except winning. We destroy everything until the enemy gives up. A human woman named Elena Rodriguez stepped forward. She worked for Earth's government and tried to make peace with aliens. We are telling you this because we heard that some of you want to attack our colonies. We want to stop a war before it starts. The room became quiet. All the aliens were thinking about what the humans had said. Then the Nexari ambassador spoke. Again, his scales were still purple, which meant he still did not believe them. Admiral, your warnings sound like threats. If humans had such power, we would have seen it by now. Captain Parker spoke up. Our ships can hide so well that you cannot see them, even when they are right next to you. We have ships in this star system right now, but your machines cannot find them. The Makani robot, called Overseer 7, immediately started scanning for hidden ships. The Makani were part machine and part living thing. They had the best sensors in the galaxy. For several minutes, the robot scanned everything around the planet. It found nothing unusual. All the aliens relaxed when they heard this. They thought, The humans were lying because the scan found nothing. They did not know that human technology was much better than anything the Makani had. Jack felt very tired. He could see that his warning was not working. He touched a button on his uniform. That sent a secret message to all human ships. All human ships, this is Admiral Harrison. Start Protocol 7. Pull back from all joint missions with alien forces. As Jack and his team got ready to leave, Dr. Webb tried one more time. In human history, we have a saying, speak softly and carry a big stick. For 200 years, we have been speaking softly. Please do not make us show you the big stick. The Corvan war chief Throxall laughed very loud. It sounded like rocks grinding together. Empty words from weak people. You run away because you know you cannot fight us. Jack stopped walking and turned around. His face was very serious and sad. War Chief Throxall, I really hope you never find out how wrong you are. But I think you will find out soon. As the humans left the meeting room, the aliens started talking about what to do. They thought the humans were bluffing and trying to scare them. None of them noticed the tiny changes in space around their planet that meant ships were there using technology they could not understand. Jack had given his warning, just like he promised he would. The aliens had not listened, just like he thought they would not. Now, somewhere in the darkness of space, humans were getting ready for a war they had hoped would never happen. Back on the human ships, soldiers were opening locked rooms that had been sealed for decades. They were taking out weapons that had never been used. They were reading battle plans that had been written but never tried. The weapons and plans were so terrible that humans had promised never to use them. But promises could be broken when the other side would not listen to reason. The aliens thought they knew what humans could do because they had fought next to them for 200 years. They thought humans were just another species with normal weapons and normal tactics. They were about to learn that everything they thought they knew about humans was wrong. In the deep space around many star systems, human ships began moving toward positions they had planned years ago. The ships were invisible to alien sensors. The weapons they carried were beyond alien understanding. The soldiers inside them had trained for this day, but hoped it would never come. The warning had been given. It had been ignored. Now the galaxy would learn what happened when the most dangerous predators in known space decided to stop pretending to be harmless. Commander Ryan Blake was checking the outer edge of the Centauri star system when the emergency message came through. His ship was called the UES Defiant, and it was doing regular patrol work. The message was coded with the highest level of security that humans had. The hologram of Admiral Patricia Stone appeared on his bridge. She looked very angry and tired. All human colonies in the Vega sector are under attack. The Corvan Empire and their Zephyrian friends started hitting us 6 hours ago. They are targeting our civilians on purpose. Ryan felt sick to his stomach. Lieutenant Commander Amy Foster brought up pictures on the main screen that showed the damage. Sir, they hit our farms first, then our hospitals and schools. This is not a military attack. They are trying to scare us by hurting innocent people. The pictures were horrible to look at. New Geneva Colony had 2.3 million people living there, and now it was burning. The space stations that protected it had been destroyed. The aliens had not won by being stronger. They had won by sending so many ships that they did not care how many of their own got destroyed. What are our orders, Admiral? Ryan asked, but he was already afraid of what she would say. Admiral Stone's face looked like it was made of stone. The President has given permission to use the Omega protocols. All limits on human military operations are now removed. Go to Rally Point Zeus and wait for more orders. Ryan felt cold fear run through his body. The Omega protocols were plans that most soldiers hoped would never be used. They were too dangerous and too terrible. Ma'am, are you sure? Once we do this, we can never go back. Commander Blake, Stone said in a hard voice, they crossed the line when they started killing our children. The gloves are off now. When the transmission ended, Ryan turned to talk to his crew. The 300 men and women on his ship had grown up, believing that humans should fight with honor and rules. Now they were going to learn what their species could really do when all the rules were gone. Attention everyone, Ryan announced over the ship's speakers. We are now operating under Omega Protocol. Chief Martinez, open the restricted weapons storage. Lieutenant Hayes, turn on the enhanced combat systems. Dr. Peterson, prepare the psychological warfare packages. The feeling on the ship changed completely as systems that had been sleeping for decades started waking up. The Defiant's real power had been hidden even from most of its own crew. Now, as secret rooms opened and advanced weapons came online, the ship changed from a peaceful patrol vessel into something much more dangerous. Martinez was an old soldier who remembered the early days. He watched as weapons that broke Galactic laws were brought out of storage. Sir, the quantum disruption torpedoes are ready. The neural cascade generators are online. Lieutenant Susan Hayes was the ship's weapons officer. She stared at her screens with amazement. Commander, these weapon systems are completely unknown to our enemies. How long have we been hiding this technology? Since before we met the first aliens, Ryan said with a grim voice. Humanity learned hard lessons during our own wars. We made weapons designed to break not just enemy ships, but enemy spirits. We promised never to use them again, but we kept them just in case. The Defiant met with other human ships at Rally Point. Zeus, it was supposed to be empty space, but suddenly it filled with over 200 ships that had been hiding with advanced stealth technology. Ryan counted vessels of designs he had never seen before. Admiral Jake Morrison appeared as a hologram to speak to all the ships. Ladies and gentlemen, today we remember why humanity earned its place among the stars through strength, not just talk. Our enemies think they understand how humans fight because they have seen us fight with one hand tied behind our backs. They are about to learn the difference between human restraint and human capability. The briefing showed how bad the attacks had been. The Corvin-Zephyrian Alliance had attacked 17 human colonies at the same time. They had targeted civilians to try to break human morale. They thought that humans, being soft and ethical, would surrender rather than let their people die. They made two big mistakes, Admiral Morrison continued. First, they thought our restraint was weakness. Second, they forgot that humans are the only species in the galaxy that evolved as persistence predators. We do not just defeat our enemies. We hunt them until they can never threaten us again. Ryan studied the battle plans being given to all the ships. The strategies were unlike anything taught at the military academy. These were plans for total war, designed not just to defeat enemies, but to make sure they could never fight again. Sir, Lieutenant Hayes whispered, some of these tactics will cause massive damage to everything around the targets. Ryan nodded with a heavy heart. That is the point, Lieutenant. Our enemies need to understand that attacking human civilians has a price they are not willing to pay. We are not just going to defeat them. We are going to make them an example for any other species that might think about doing the same thing. As the human fleet got ready to leave Rally Point Zeus, each ship carried weapons and tactics that had been considered too dangerous for normal warfare. Humanity had spent centuries learning to fight with honor and rules. Now they would show what they had been holding back from. The galaxy was about to discover why humanity had tried so hard to avoid this moment. Some lessons, Ryan thought, could only be learned through pain and fear. The fleet moved out into space like a swarm of mechanical death. Each ship was invisible to alien sensors. Each weapon ignored conventional defenses. Each tactic was designed not just to win battles, but but to traumatize enemies into never fighting again out in the deep darkness between stars. Human commanders opened sealed orders that contained strategies developed over centuries of human warfare. These were not the limited engagement rules they had used for 200 years of galactic cooperation. These were the complete and unrestricted doctrines of a species that had nearly destroyed itself learning how to wage total war. The aliens had wanted to see what humans could really do. Now they would get their wish, and they would regret it for the rest of their existence. Behind the advancing human fleet, automated systems began manufacturing additional weapons and ships. The industrial capacity that had been deliberately limited for centuries was now operating at full power. What the aliens had attacked was not just human colonies, but the restraints that kept the most dangerous species in the galaxy from showing its true nature. The warning had been ignored. The provocation had been made. Now the galaxy would learn why some doors should never be opened. The first attack came without any warning at the Corvan military shipyards of Brutic Prime. The facility was protected by powerful shield generators and defended by 3 entire battle fleets. The Corvan war chief Throxel had bragged that human forces would destroy themselves trying to attack such a strong target. Captain Nicole Torres proved him wrong in less than 5 minutes. Her ship was called the UES Phantom, and it used technology that the galactic community had never imagined was possible. Along with 15 other ships, she had snuck into the system without setting off a single alarm. The alien defenders had no idea death was coming for them. "We have locks on all targets," reported Lieutenant Paul Chun from the weapons station. "All primary buildings, command centers, and defense platforms are ready to be destroyed." Nicole looked at the tactical display with cold eyes. The Corvan facility was built across 3 moons and 2 space stations. It had taken them centuries to build everything. In normal human operations, they would have demanded surrender first. They would have given time for civilians to escape. They would have only targeted military buildings. Today was not normal. "Begin Operation Reaper," Nicole ordered. "All ships execute strike pattern Omega-7. The attack lasted exactly 4 minutes and 37 seconds. When it was over, the Brutic Prime military complex simply did not exist anymore. The quantum disruption weapons did not just destroy the buildings. They broke them apart at the molecular level, leaving behind only empty space and clouds of scattered atoms. The defending fleets never got a chance to fight back. Human neural cascade weapons overwhelmed their crews' nervous systems, leaving entire ships floating helplessly before the final weapons turned them into cosmic dust. All across the galaxy, similar strikes were happening at the same time. Human forces that had hidden their true abilities for generations now revealed. Technologies that broke the galactic community's understanding of how physics worked. Ships appeared and disappeared at will. Weapons that seemed to bend reality itself turned mighty fortresses into memory. Admiral Patricia Stone coordinated the campaign from the UES Vengeance, a dreadnought-class ship that officially did not exist. Her bridge showed tactical information from dozens of operations happening simultaneously. Each one demonstrated capabilities that the Galactic Council had said were impossible. "Admiral, we are getting surrender offers from the Zephyrian High Command," reported Commander Steve Johnson from Communications. "They want immediate ceasefire negotiations." Stone's expression did not change. "Tell them that surrender requests are being reviewed by our Psychological Warfare Division. They will get a response when we decide it is in humanity's best interest." The psychological warfare was perhaps the most terrifying part of humanity's unleashed military doctrine. Dr. Margaret Liu had spent decades studying the mental weaknesses of various galactic species. Now that information was being turned into a weapon. The Zephyrians communicated through harmonic frequencies, so humans flooded their networks with dissonant patterns that caused paralyzing terror. The Corvan warrior culture was built on concepts of honor and strength, so human forces systematically demonstrated their complete superiority while offering no opportunity for glorious combat. The Nexari Consortium has withdrawn from the Alliance, reported Lieutenant Colonel Dana Wright from Intelligence. They are asking for neutral status and want to help negotiate peace. Stone nodded grimly. Tell them that humanity appreciates their concern, but we will decide the terms of peace when our goals have been met. Until then, any attempt to interfere will be considered an act of war. The human fleet moved through space like a plague of destruction. Advanced stealth technology. Let them appear anywhere, anytime, without warning. Their weapons ignored conventional defenses, and their tactics seemed designed not just to defeat enemies, but to traumatize them into permanent submission. Commander, Blake now led a task force of 30 ships and received new orders that showed humanity's changed approach to warfare. Priority target, Corvan homeworld defensive grid. Rules of engagement, total destruction. Civilian evacuations, not our responsibility. Blake's tactical officer, Lieutenant Hayes, looked up from her station with worry. Sir, their homeworld has over 8 billion people living on it. If we destroy their defensive grid, they will be completely helpless. That is the point, Lieutenant, Blake replied with no emotion in his voice. They chose to target our civilians. Now they get to experience the fear their actions have earned. The assault on the Corvan homeworld began with a demonstration of power that shattered the enemy's understanding of warfare. Human ships appeared in perfect formation above their capital city, weapons powered but not yet firing. For exactly 60 seconds, they hung in the sky like mechanical gods, letting the population below see their own helplessness. Then they disappeared, leaving behind only a quantum-transmitted message. You have 24 hours to remove all military personnel and equipment from this system. After that time, we will demonstrate why attacking human civilians was a mistake. The psychological impact was devastating. Across the Corvan Empire, panic spread as populations realized their mighty military could not protect them from an enemy they could not see, could not predict, and could not understand. The warrior culture that had dominated their society for thousands of years crumbled in the face of their complete tactical obsolescence. Admiral Morrison watched the campaign's progress from Fleet Command, observing as humanity's true military doctrine played out across multiple star systems. Report from all sectors, he requested. Corvan Rim Fleet, eliminated. Zephyrian battle groups, surrendered or destroyed. Nexari defense platforms, requesting immediate neutrality status. His aide reported efficiently. Morrison nodded with satisfaction. Phase 1 is complete. Begin Phase 2. Demonstration strikes against secondary targets. Make sure our message is clear. Humanity does not just defeat its enemies. We make examples of them. As human forces prepared for the next phase of operations, intercepted communications from across the galaxy revealed the campaign's true success. Species that had never encountered humanity were already changing their military doctrines, not to fight humans, but to avoid ever giving them cause for conflict. Meanwhile, in the deepest parts of space, automated human factories that had been dormant for centuries came online. They began producing weapons and ships using designs that had been theoretical until now. The industrial capacity that humanity had deliberately kept limited was now operating at full power for the first time since the species had joined the galactic community. The aliens had attacked what they thought were soft human colonies. What they had actually attacked were the restraints that kept the most dangerous predatory species in the galaxy from showing its true nature. Psychological warfare specialists studied the intercepted communications from enemy worlds. The fear was spreading faster than their ships could travel. Entire civilizations were surrendering before human forces even arrived in their systems. The reputation of human restraint had been replaced by the reality of human capability. The warning had been ignored. The provocation had been answered. Now the galaxy was learning why that had been a mistake they would never make again. The Galactic Council held an emergency meeting as reports came in from all over known space. What had started as a planned attack against human colonies had turned into a systematic demonstration of humanity's hidden power. The same species that had served peacefully for 2 centuries had revealed themselves as something far more dangerous than anyone had imagined. Ambassador Velthara of the Nexari Consortium spoke to the assembly with obvious fear. Honored delegates, we must face an uncomfortable truth. In 3 weeks of fighting, human forces have made the combined might of the Corvan Empire and Zephyrian Alliance completely useless. Their technology, their tactics, their strategic abilities were all hidden from us. The holographic displays showed the terrible results. 17 major military bases had been eliminated without warning. 4 entire fleets had simply vanished. Their crews reportedly alive, but psychologically broken beyond repair. The Corvan homeworld's population had been moved to refugee camps after humanity demonstrated they could bypass any defense system whenever they wanted. Overseer 7, the Makani representative, processed data streams while speaking to the assembly. Analysis shows human technological superiority exceeds all previous estimates by factors, ranging from 300 to 1,200%. Their stealth abilities make conventional detection useless. Their weapon systems operate on principles our scientists call impossible. Admiral Jack Harrison appeared via secure hologram, his image flickering slightly due to the advanced encryption protecting all human communications. The assembled delegates, who had dismissed his warnings months earlier, now watched him with obvious terror. Admiral Harrison, began the Nexari ambassador, the Galactic Council formally requests immediate ceasefire negotiations. We acknowledge that the attacks on human colonies were acts of aggression that violated interstellar law. Harrison's expression stayed cold. Ambassador, the time for negotiations was 3 months ago when I stood in that same chamber and warned you of this exact scenario. Your response was to question our abilities and mock our restraint. The Valteri representative pulsed with desperate colors. Surely humanity does not intend to continue this devastation indefinitely. What are your terms for peace? Our terms are simple, Harrison replied. Complete and unconditional surrender of all forces that participated in attacks on human civilians. Payment for damages to our colonies. And formal acknowledgement that humanity's previous restraint was a gift, not a weakness. War Chief Throxel, his 4 arms now shaking with what humans recognized as barely controlled fear, stepped forward. Admiral, the Corvan people are warriors. We cannot accept such humiliation. Surely some arrangement could be made. War Chief. Harrison interrupted. Your people chose to target human children and hospitals. You celebrated what you believed was our weakness. Now you face the consequences of that choice. Dr. Elizabeth Morgan, Earth's chief diplomatic advisor, used her neural interface to display comprehensive analysis. Our studies of alien psychology predicted this response pattern. Most galactic species think that military ability scales in a straight line with demonstrated force. They could not imagine that we are operating at 15% of our actual capacity. The revelation sent waves of shock through the assembly. The Zephyrian delegate, her crystalline wings now dull with despair, spoke in barely audible tones. 15%? But your forces were already competitive with our best units. Competitive? Harrison's voice carried a hint of dark amusement. Ambassador, our training exercises use more advanced technology than you have deployed in actual warfare. What you have witnessed so far represents humanity getting serious, not humanity at full capacity. Colonel Sandra Reed, Earth's military liaison, stepped forward with additional data. Our psychological warfare division has been analyzing the effects of our operations on enemy populations. The results exceeded our projections. Most opposing forces are now experiencing clinical levels of learned helplessness. The chamber fell silent as the implications sank in. The Makani overseer processed the information with mechanical efficiency. Query: what operational percentage does humanity currently employ in this conflict? Harrison exchanged glances with his staff before responding. Approximately 35% of our technological capabilities, and roughly 20% of our strategic doctrine implementation. The number hit the assembly like a physical blow. If humanity's current, devastating campaign represented barely 1/3 of their true capacity. The implications were terrifying beyond comprehension. Ambassador, Velthara's scales shifted to colors that indicated complete submission. Admiral Harrison, what must we do to prevent further escalation? The galaxy cannot survive a conflict with humanity at full capability. That is the point, Harrison replied grimly. For 2 centuries, we have maintained peace through restraint. We have fought your wars with our hands tied, died in your causes while holding back our true strength. We did this because we learned, through our own bitter history, that unrestricted human warfare is something no one benefits from. Dr. Morgan activated additional projections, showing historical data from Earth's past conflicts. Our species nearly destroyed itself multiple times using far more primitive technology than we currently possess. We have spent generations learning to channel our aggressive instincts constructively, but that restraint requires mutual respect. The Corvan war chief, his warrior's pride completely broken, asked the question everyone feared to voice. What would humanity at full capacity look like? Harrison's expression grew distant, as if seeing visions of conflicts he hoped would never occur. War chief, at full capacity, humanity does not just defeat enemies. We reshape entire regions of space to ensure threats can never emerge again. We do not occupy territory. We sterilize it and rebuild it according to our specifications. We do not negotiate with hostile species. We remove their capacity for hostility permanently. The chamber erupted in panicked discussions as species representatives began calculating the implications for their own civilizations. The realization was dawning that humanity's previous peaceful cooperation had been a deliberate choice, not an inevitable characteristic of their species. Colonel Reed provided the final devastating context. Our current rules of engagement still prohibit the use of our most advanced strategic weapons, limit collateral damage to military targets, and require preservation of enemy civilian populations. Even now, we are still showing restraint. Admiral Harrison prepared to end the transmission. The galaxy chose to test humanity's limits. Now you are discovering what those limits actually protect you from. We will resume negotiations when the surviving aggressors are ready to discuss surrender terms, not ceasefire conditions. As the hologram faded, the Galactic Council faced a new reality. The peacekeeping species they had taken for granted was actually the most dangerous predator in known space, one that had been deliberately restraining itself for everyone's benefit. Now, they had to decide whether to accept humanity's dominance or face the consequences of pushing the most dangerous species in the galaxy beyond the point of restraint. The delegates sat in stunned silence, each contemplating how their entire understanding of galactic power dynamics had been completely wrong. They had mistaken kindness for weakness, restraint for inability, and cooperation for submission. The universe had become a much more frightening place in the span of a single conversation. 6 months after the first human colony had burned, Admiral Jack Harrison stood once again before the Galactic Council. The chamber was very different now. Many seats were empty because their former occupants had either been destroyed, scattered as refugees, or were still recovering from the psychological trauma of encountering unrestricted human warfare. The survivors had learned to listen very carefully. The Terran Federation presents the following terms for galactic stability, Harrison announced, his voice carrying the authority of a species that had proven its supremacy beyond any question. First, formal recognition of human territorial sovereignty over all systems within 50 light years of Earth. Second, establishment of the human security zone, where no military vessels may operate without explicit Terran authorization. Ambassador Velthera, now serving as the interim council president after the previous leadership's complete nervous breakdown, nodded with resigned acceptance. The council agrees to these terms, Admiral. What additional requirements does humanity present? Colonel Maria Santos, Earth's new chief of galactic affairs, activated holographic displays showing the proposed new order. The Galactic Defense Initiative will be restructured under human command. All member species will contribute to a combined fleet, but strategic and tactical doctrine will follow human military protocols. The implications were staggering. What had once been a coalition of equals was becoming a hierarchy with humanity. At its apex, yet none of the surviving species dared object. They had seen what happened to those who challenged human authority. Dr. Patricia Lee, Earth's xenopsychological warfare specialist, provided additional context. Our analysis indicates that galactic stability requires clear authority structures. The previous system's assumption of equality among species with vastly different capabilities led inevitably to conflict. War Chief Throxell, now bearing the title former before his rank, spoke with the broken voice of a warrior who had learned his limitations. Admiral, the Corvin survivors request permission to establish a memorial colony for our civilian casualties. We understand now that our actions led to consequences we were not prepared to face. Harrison's expression remained neutral. Former war chief, humanity recognizes the tragedy that befell all civilian populations during this conflict. Memorial colonies will be permitted, with human oversight, to ensure they do not become focal points for renewed aggression. The Zephyrian delegate, her once proud crystalline wings now permanently dimmed, asked the question that haunted every species in the chamber. Admiral Harrison, what assurance do we have that humanity will not simply eliminate us when it becomes convenient? For the first time in the session, Harrison's expression softened slightly. Ambassador, that is exactly why we tried to avoid this situation. Unrestricted human warfare is a tool that, once used, changes everything permanently. We can never go back to the way things were. Captain Lisa Parker, now bearing the rank of Admiral herself, stepped forward with long-term projections. The Terran Federation's goal is stability, not domination. However, stability requires that potential threats be neutralized before they develop. This means active monitoring and intervention in developing civilizations to prevent the emergence of aggressive military cultures. The scope of humanity's vision was becoming clear. They were not just establishing dominance over current species. They were reshaping galactic civilization to prevent future conflicts entirely. Dr. Jonathan Blake, formerly a ship commander and now serving as Director of Galactic Integration, outlined the reconstruction plans. Species that demonstrate compatibility with human values will be offered technology sharing agreements and military protection. Those that maintain aggressive doctrines will be relocated to reservation systems under permanent supervision. The Nixari representative raised a question that had been troubling many delegates. Director Blake, how do we know humanity will not eventually turn this same focus on internal threats? What prevents you from deciding that some human faction has become dangerous? Blake's response was chilling in its honesty. Nothing prevents it. That is why human society has spent centuries developing internal checks and balances to prevent the concentration of unchecked power. We learned these lessons the hard way during our own planetary conflicts. Admiral Morrison appeared via secure transmission to address the Assembly's deeper concerns. Delegates, I want to be absolutely clear about humanity's position. We never wanted to become galactic rulers. We tried to warn you that pushing us to this point would change everything permanently. But now that we are here, we have a responsibility to ensure this situation never repeats itself. The session continued for hours as the new reality was written into law. Humanity would provide protection, technology, and guidance to species that demonstrated compatibility with peaceful coexistence. Those that did not would face restrictions ranging from limited autonomy to complete relocation. Former War Chief Throxell made one final attempt at understanding. Admiral Harrison, in our culture, warriors who demonstrate superior strength are honored and respected. But you seem regretful about your victory. Why? Harrison paused, considering his response carefully. Former War Chief, imagine if you discovered that your greatest warrior had been fighting children all his life, pretending they were worthy opponents to maintain their dignity. Then imagine those children decided to test whether he was really as strong as he claimed. He let the comparison sink in before continuing. Victory over a helpless opponent is not honor. It is tragedy. As the session concluded, the surviving galactic species began adapting to their new reality. Some would thrive under human protection and guidance. Others would spend generations in supervised rehabilitation. A few would never recover from the psychological trauma of learning their place in the cosmic hierarchy. Admiral Harrison delivered his closing statement to a chamber full of beings who now understood the price of awakening humanity's true nature. For 2 centuries, we offered partnership among equals. You chose to test whether that partnership was based on mutual respect or mutual weakness. Now you have your answer. The galaxy had learned that humanity's greatest gift to the cosmos was not their technology, their military prowess, or their strategic capabilities. It was their willingness to restrain all of those things in service of peace. That gift, once rejected, could never be offered again. In the months that followed, human fleets patrolled space lanes that had once been neutral territory. Human advisors guided the reconstruction of shattered civilizations. Human scientists shared carefully selected technologies with species deemed ready for advancement. The galaxy was safer, more stable, and more prosperous than it had ever been. It was also a fundamentally different place. One where a single species maintained order through the credible threat of overwhelming force, and where every other civilization existed at the sufferance of those who had tried desperately to avoid this outcome. Humanity had warned the galaxy they were holding back. The galaxy had chosen not to listen. Now everyone lived with the consequences of that choice, in a universe where peace was maintained not through mutual respect, but through the absolute certainty that challenging the established order meant facing an enemy that fought without mercy, restraint, or the possibility of defeat. The age of galactic cooperation had ended. The age of human hegemony had begun. And somewhere in the depths of space, human military researchers continued developing weapons and strategies that would never be needed, but would always be ready, just in case some new species, somewhere in the vast cosmos, made the same mistake as their predecessors. The galaxy had learned its lesson, but humanity had learned one too. Sometimes the greatest kindness is also the greatest cruelty, and the most peaceful species might also be the most dangerous. The universe was a quieter place now. Whether that silence represented peace or the fearful quiet of the defeated was a question that would echo through the ages.